There we go. Yeah.
Let's go.
Because in a significant move towards criminal justice reform, Republican Senator Rand Paul is spearheading a bipartisan initiative aimed at sealing low-level marijuana possession records. This effort is designed to provide individuals a second chance at life. Last week, Senator Paul not only introduced a measure to ease federal restrictions on hemp, tripling the allowable THC content from 0.3% to 1%, but also proposed the Clean Slate Act. This bill would enable those convicted of simple drug possession, and other low-level nonviolent marijuana offenses to request record sealing, particularly for cases that don't qualify for automatic relief. This newly introduced legislation is a companion to a House version filed last year by Representatives Lisa Blunt Rochester and Nancy Mace, which unfortunately did not progress. Why this is important? The bipartisan legislation co-sponsored by Senator Bob Casey aims to grant millions of Americans the opportunity to move forward without the burden of minor nonviolent criminal histories. Casey emphasized that this would help families and individuals who have completed their sentences but build successful lives. As efforts at the state level ramp up with initiatives in place like Minnesota, Colorado, Connecticut, and New York, this federal bill could mark a significant step towards reforming how we address low-level drug offenses. So obviously this is not the full answer, but any progress when we're talking about actually sealing records and expungement and making sure that we're following all steps of this process to cover people's lives and help them start to restore them is great. Obviously it's not enough, but this is progress. And I also think it's interesting that they're aiming to increase the amount of THC allowable in hemp on a federal level. So I want to throw it back to you guys and see what you think.
This is interesting because Rand Paul is calling for the elevation of the THC levels in hemp, and meanwhile Ron Wyden has introduced legislation that would keep it the same. And so that's going to be real interesting to watch as these conversations continue in the Senate delegation.
You're on mute, Rico.
I said it's good to hear Rand Paul's still fine and well. He's been about as quiet as Joe Biden, over the last year or so. Maybe he got into another spat with his neighbor and called the cops.
Got his ass beat.
Well, it sounds like he was busy, writing a bill. So
exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, Some people work.
Maybe he was somewhere doing his fucking job. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I like this bill and what he's doing.
Hold on. Say that again, Mathieu St. Germain. Say that again, Mathieu St. Germain.
So maybe you guys will find the difference between St. Germain is he makes his decision based on principle, not tribal alliance.
Oh, boy.
Same.
And this is a good bill, and Rand Paul, as a senator from Kentucky, is backing up his constituents, and that makes sense. Both in allowing a higher legal limit for hemp so that they can actually get some of this saleable, as well as expunging or sealing these cases. And nobody ever deserved to be going to jail for cannabis. This entire thing was instituted by Ronnie Reagan and Richard Nixon, two of the most evil fascists who ever been born on the planet.
I don't know about all that, but okay.
Trumped only by George Bush Sr. And so I'd like to see all of these records sealed, expunged, people pardoned. And again, I think it's great that he's looking out for his hemp farmers in that way. But what I'd rather see is... and this goes back to that other story, I'd really rather see more government subsidies pointed at hemp farming to get hemp farmers into food, crop, the seed, into fuel, into fiber, into future-based hemp plastics, biodegradable hemp plastics, and all of these other things that the hemp plant can do besides try to compete with cannabis for THC content.
I totally agree with that, Mathieu St. Germain.
Speaking of fiber, it's interesting that Rand Paul, like Mitch McConnell, as folks trying to do their best for Kentucky, are united on the issue of being against former President Trump's tariffs. Nor has Rand Paul endorsed Trump this year the way he did the last time Trump ran. So I thought that was interesting. Not a ton of unity in the party or a lot of broad support within the party for Trump's tariff language.
You must have missed that part of the article I just read.
Yeah, well, the internet does kind of work in all directions, so there are other articles one can feed one's brain with if one chooses to.
He had nothing negative to say about the article, so you need to find something to throw in there. I guess stick to the narrative. It's okay.
From Yarrow.
It's okay.
I think the narrative is that Rand Paul likes to position himself as this feisty libertarian outsider. Not always the case, but again, back to sort of economic policy and making America greater than it's ever been.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of senators or previous senators who think that the tariff idea is well thought out economic policy that will propel us to the next stage of growth in our economy.
Fair.
The narrative, Jason.
Fair enough. Shout out to Rand Paul. We appreciate all the work you guys you do, Senator.
I think this is a great story.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for covering this today. This is great news on a Monday to start your week off on the most important day of the week.
And I might be a slightly higher Republican this morning. Accidentally.
That's because you're still on
Guys,
your weed.
I get sad when Rico leaves halfway through. Could we just leave a screenshot up of him from now on?
Where's Rico?
Maybe. But
We can get you one of those little teddy bears with his face on it.
We're going to be right back.